On this episode, we analyze CEO Oscar Munoz of United Airlines. Every CEO gets two questions. Are you clear, concise, and credible? Before we jump into the first question here, I have a disclaimer. We filmed this in June of 2020, and this recording dates back to November of 2019 of the CEO of United. And his perspective is that there's going to be no recession in sight. Now, no CEO could have seen exactly what we're all going through in 2020. What we're going to analyze though is how he answers this and how his questions are coming through either clear, concise, and making sure that he's always credible.
Than you do. So tell me, are we close to a recession as so many people tell me to worry about? Or is it a pretty halcyon time to be in the airline business?
Listen, and we started this conversation back in early.
Saying listen to somebody is never a preference for me personally and many of the leaders I've spoken to. When you say to someone, listen, you're telling them that they either weren't listening or you should listen because I'm about to say something. He could have simply started with,
We started this conversation back in early of 2019, and
we started this conversation in early 2019. You can see it makes such a difference when he starts it from a real word he would use if he wrote this out. We started this conversation.
and I've never seen a wider gap between what is being discussed and trying to be pushed and the facts and figures that we see. So the answer is no. Now, we don't have as long a term of view of things. And
Oscar reveals here he doesn't have the longer term view. And that would actually play in. That's good awareness because now in 2020, it's very different for the airline industry.
we're always watching, obviously, because it's important to always be sort of cognizant of those potential trends. But
Sort of is too much of a passive phrase for leaders.
If you have 14 737 Maxes, does that make it so you can't make as much money as you'd like this next 2 months?
that's a difficult conversation. We have to talk about that issue purely on a safety and security aspect of that. Of course, it has impact, but it has lots of different impacts on the industry with overall capacity and so on and so forth. We're just waiting for the right folks to say it's okay to fly, and then we're going to implement our own process to ensure that all our customers are comfortable when they actually book a flight.
How do you do that? Because
This is a challenging question here to Oscar. How do you make sure that safety is paramount? And he stops Jim here in his tracks and says it's important for us to focus on this and make sure we're safe. An excellent way to answer that question there. If we take a look at Oscar's scores, we can see that he scores very well in the facial expressions, in his tone of voice. He expresses gravitas with the depth of voice that he has, but also has some range and dynamicness when he speaks. When it comes to his disfluencies, there are a few that he's using at the start of his statements and some peppered out towards the end. That's where all of us could understand when we start to speak, take that pause, and at the end, try and have some form of closure for your sentences. Overall, Oscar is a great communicator. He takes his time, he thinks, and he speaks with credibility because of the depth of his voice. If you found our content resonated with you, please share it or send us a comment. Who would you like us to analyze?